Tired of paying 10%, 15%, or more to sell your cards, comics, and digital collectibles? How does 1% sound? Too good to be true? Well, not anymore. MySlabs.com is the web's premier user-driven marketplace for buying and selling slabbed cards, sealed wax, and now, slabbed comics and digital collectibles. So the next time you're forced to pay 10% or more to sell something from your collection, head over to MySlabs.com and join the 1% revolution.
What's up, guys? You know what night it is? Wednesday night, Off-Center with Dustin, the personal finance dad. And tonight is going to be a doozy because we got probably the biggest guest we've ever had. The myth, the man, the legend, Dr. James Beckett is in the house. He's going to be joining us for the first time. And this guy's obviously, I mean, you don't even need an introduction for him, but we're going to have a great time talking about a whole lot of topics in the hobby, but also having a great time doing it because we're going to bring in some lighter topics as well. So I'm very excited about this. Y'all already know the drill. Welcome back. Now let's get to work. Let's bring on the guest I have to bring on because it's just part of the contract. Dustin.
Hello, hello. Good to see you.
Man?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
You seem like you're in a better mood than usual. How was you mentioned that you had a couple of good Bumble dates, so you cheated on Hinge, huh? Well,
look, for one, Hinge has not offered the sponsorship yet.
So it's still open.
I do use both, and Bumble surprised me. You know, usually Hinge is the app that I get the most conversations and dates on, but Bumble really surprised me. So I actually went on a really casual mid-afternoon date Sunday with this girl, very casual. Went to Earth Cafe. If anyone's been to LA, Earth Cafe is very popular. It's in West Hollywood. It's very cute cafe, just charming. Really hit it off. You know, 2 weeks ago, I think I mentioned I met a girl that was really nice and cute, but there was no conversation. It was really a battle just to be able to talk about a lot of different topics.
You didn't even pay the bill. She didn't pay the bill. How lame.
I know, man. I mean, that's like my number one priority. And then this girl, half Chinese, half Colombian, very exotic, very beautiful. And we just talked about everything. Everything was like nodding. Yes. Are you serious? Yeah. You've read that book. You know that person. You listen to this. You do this. And so she's a breathwork coach, very LA career, but hit it off the other night and then went out last night as well to this kind of speakeasy place, had a couple drinks. It was a late night. It was a great night. And I'm just feeling it today, but spirits are really high.
All right. So are you going to cancel the eHarmony subscription and the Match.com, or are you going to keep all the premium stuff going?
I don't even know if those ones exist. I mean, I think you only need Hinge, and I don't know if Match is even a thing nowadays, but yeah, if it's not an app on the phone, people don't use websites, but I'm content with these apps. And well, I don't know, maybe I'll date this girl. And maybe, one of the best video topics I've done that a lot of you guys have said you really enjoy is when I bring newbies to card shows. So maybe she'll be the next one I bring to a card show to introduce her to the hobby and the whole world that we're in right now.
True test.
What about you, man? How's everything?
Same old thing. Kids, wife, dog, cards. No, I mean, it's been good. It's just been really, really busy. But yeah, all in all, I can't complain. It's cold here too. In North Carolina, we've been doing a lot of hot tubbing. It's like 30 degrees. We got a hot tub like a month ago.
Above ground.
I've been living in that thing. And it's supposed to snow this weekend too. So it's so weird because it doesn't snow that much down here. Literally, like the other morning it was snowing. I ran out onto the deck and got into the hot tub just so I could have the whole like it's snowing in the hot tub experience. So yeah. That's my life. That's what I do.
Hey man, that's not bad. I don't have a hot tub. I just have perfect weather every day, all day, and I live in heaven. So, but no hot tub. Let's say hi to a couple of guys on here, then we'll bring on our distinguished guest. We got Michael Ham in the house. Go Bucks. And then that means Troy's in here as well. Good to see you, Troy. You're always in the house. And I always see you DMing me on Instagram. I don't read anyone's DMs. I'm bad at that. This is like the way of communicating. I just have major screen fatigue. So I try not to look at screens more than I have to, but I love seeing you here. Good to see you, Steven. Mark Ford is in the house as well. Brian Sherlin, Go Bucks, another Buck fan right there. And also shout out to Slab Shelf. They sent me a free Slab Shelf, which I would show it. It's on my Instagram. I would show it up here, but I don't want to ruin the whole setup with my laptop. But shout out to them for the free gift. It's super cool. And we are on Instagram, the Personal Finance Dad and the Comeback Card Investor as well. Greetings from New Zealand. I saw that earlier. That's super cool. I love how many internationals we have, because this hobby is only going to grow so much more when we can have cards and retail and grading accessible to the other 5 continents or whatever we got out there.
Agreed. Yeah,
Agreed.
there needs to be more of a global. Well, yeah, I mean, we've talked about it, like global efficiency. Where is it? We've got to find it. It's coming. I think it's got to be coming, though.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see. So let's bring on our guest. It's already been 6 minutes of pointless banter, so I think it's time to bring Dr. Beckett in.
Can you change the screen?
Yeah.
Brad? There we go.
How are you doing today?
I was just thought I was in on a comedy show.
Yeah, it's comedy first, card second on Off Centered.
So let's just start with the Dallas Card Show, because I know you're in Dallas, correct, Dr. Beckett?
Yes.
Okay, you're in Dallas, and so were you able to attend the show last week? Just because we did have some big news in terms of what happened, what went down there. So I just wanted to see if you were around and just discuss that a little bit.
I was there Friday and Sunday. I couldn't go on Saturday, and I think that's when there was some excitement. But it was a great show. You know, they're predictably and consistently being good. I think the dealers are enjoying it. The collectors are enjoying it. It's very healthy here. And Kyle does a great job. The security is good. Great mix of stuff at the tables. So very excellent.
Yeah, we were there in May. That I felt like that was a huge show, because a lot of people went in part because we weren't sure if the national was going to happen.
Right.
That's where I believe that's where I met you, Brad, for the first time in person. A lot of guys. But is it this past weekend? Was it on par with that May show? I mean, I know they do them every couple of months, but that May one was a huge show.
It's very similar. You know, it's hard to know if the crowd was as big. I think the crowd was bigger, but it's still 600 and something tables.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So it's a lot. And there are 2 rooms. Well, actually four rooms plus foyers, and again, they're cramming it in there, but there's demand. I mean, dealers want to. I think the price of tables has gone up, but the crowd supports it. You know, dealers. Yeah, I'm happy. I can drive 20 minutes instead of jumping on a plane like I used to have to do.
Now, with the emergence of some of these other shows, I know we have Mint Collective coming up, and we're having bigger shows and also different themed shows where it's not just vendors, but we're having speakers. Who knows how experiential it'll get, because I used to work in the auto show circuit where small towns would have just the vehicles there. But when you went to LA or New York or Chicago, you would have these ride and drives where you can go on Jeeps up and down these hills that they would make. And it was like this ridiculous production. I feel like we're starting to see that. For one, what's your thoughts on the other shows that are emerging that might not even be vendor based, but they are kind of incorporating other aspects of the hobby? And do you see that taking away from the Dallas Card Show? Because besides the national, it seems like Dallas was the show to go to, but the more options we have, do you think it'll be spread too thin at some point, or what are you feeling along those lines?
Well, it's possible to be 2 places at once if you count virtual. But if you have a live show, you can't be at the show and at the seminar at the same time. That's what historically was discovered at the early nationals that had all those same kinds of things. Not the celebrity participation, but people. There's card collectors and even some investors that want to be with the cards. And now in the evening they want to do something fun. But when it's the show hours, they're not saying, "Hey, I'm going to go to this other room for a seminar to listen to something that unless it's very interactive, they could they could catch it later on a stream or some kind of a download. So I think the future is going to be some melding of virtual and real life kind of experiences at the shows. When you got all those people there, there's some amazing content that's unique that can be created. So I'm pulling for it, Brad. It's just that you can't be two physical places at the same time. You can't be in the show and at the seminar. And that's what my buddies that started the National found out. And so it kind of gradually moved toward card show during the business hours and big social in the evening, which now has included these trade nights. So we'll see. I'm hoping it works. I think I'm really hoping it works because I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I had a question just because you've been in the hobby since what year roughly, or when did you actually get into sports cards and actually have your finger on the pulse of the hobby as a whole?
When did I have my finger on the pulse? Let's see.
Yeah, as in when
I get out of grade school, get out of middle school, get out of high school. I started in the early 70s.
Okay, so we're talking about to 80s, 90s, 2000s. We're talking about like 40 something, 50 years or so. And Dustin and I have been in just for a couple of years. 2 years for me, I think almost 3 years or so, something like 3 years for Dustin, something like that, right? Okay.
4 years. Don't take away any years from me.
You're rounding up. You're rounding up. He always rounds up when it benefits him.
4.7 years.
Yeah, sure. So my perspective is very short, right? I was in grade school, and then I come back in March of 2020, February 2020. And so what I see in the hobby is like it's like a 100-foot view, but you have a 30,000-foot view. And I was wondering, based on what has happened the last 2 years, what do you see for the hobby this year? If you could say, oh, I've seen the ebbs and flows, I've seen all of this, this is a radically different time, but based on what I've seen in the past, I could see 2022 being the year that blank happens for the hobby. It's maybe like a theme or maybe the biggest element of the year.
Well, I don't want to shoot myself in the foot, but sometimes having longevity and lots of experience is a disadvantage. What's happened in the last 2 years, Brad, has been unprecedented. And so for me to filter that back and say, oh, that's just like back in 1979 or 87 or some other period, that's kind of bogus. I mean, we're on uncharted territory. The world record prices and the amount of publicity, it's unprecedented. So is it going to go up from here, or is it going to plateau for a while? I don't know, but I'm hoping with the energy that Fanatics is bringing, there's going to be increased marketing and increased eyeballs and increased dollars and all these other metrics that would move toward having a healthy hobby and a healthy industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Dustin?
I'm going to hit you with one here, Dr. Beckett. Question. So I brought my old Beckett. Actually, I'm lying. This isn't the original one. This is one I got a few years back. But so I was about to turn 9 here when this came out. Now, when I was probably 6, 7 is when I got my first pack of baseball cards, Donruss baseball cards. And I don't really remember football and basketball cards really becoming mainstream as far as seeing packs and stuff at stores until these magazines came out. It was the football. This is the first issue from 1990. Obviously, but for anyone watching that maybe doesn't know, this is 1990, the first issue for the basketball magazine. But I feel like this publication was kind of what got it was a catalyst. It was a catalyst to kind of get people thinking about football and basketball cards. You also had hockey. That was kind of my perspective as a kid. Was that also the adult perspective, I guess, of like, oh, people are collecting hockey cards? I thought that was kind of like a very niche thing. Did Beckett magazine in your eyes kind of bring that to the forefront the way that I kind of viewed it, back then?
Well, I appreciate the compliment. I think it's a chicken and egg thing because basketball, just to pick on basketball was emerging and was pretty ripe to have a magazine by 1990. But it was so not hot in 86, 87 that the Fleer product that came out was a dud. And 87, 88 wasn't produced very much, and that wasn't very successful either. 88, 89 was not very successful. But somehow in 89, when football took off, because football took off first, it proved that something besides baseball cards could be of interest to a mainstream of collector. And so when we started those magazines, yeah, I think it was catalytic, but there was already we weren't necessarily the spark, but we certainly fanned the flame.
Interesting. Kind of on the back of that too, when we look at kind of obviously it was the Beckett price guide. When you look at kind of the card ladders and the market movers and the card hedges, vintage price guide, I feel like those companies, those tools are meant to kind of be a current price guide, if you will. Do you look at them that way as kind of a price guide, or kind of an attempt at that, kind of a modern day price guide? And do you think that they have, I guess, legs to be able to kind of take that and run with it, with the technology?
Well, I mean, the word guide means different things to different people, but we were synthesizing the data that was not readily available or visible. And so we're coming up with a price guide price, whereas Card Ladder, Market Movers, all these others are basically reporting transactions and drawing some inference from that. We were more of the black box, that the transactions were not easily available. We were all over the country. And so then we would synthesize that into a price for every card. And again, that's the amazing thing. When I look back, we were doing every card in every set, or at least the demand cards. And most of these others are mainly doing the high demand cards where there's a lot of traction, a lot of action, and a lot of it now can be automated and scraped from eBay and these other sources. But back in the day, we were doing a lot of brute force. And it was exciting, and the market was smaller then. There were less cards, less complexity, but still really tough. So,
yeah. And John here asked, how would you, or how did they, or you synthesize the data? The other thing that I just noticed, or when I was looking through the Beckett guides as a kid, I was like, a lot of these cards are $4, $2, which means that there's a lot of effort going to very low end cards. While right now you could automatically track cards that are actually very valuable, where it would be worth the effort because there's a lot more money to be made and jobs to be had. But back then, if you're tracking all this data for a 50-cent card and a $3 card on the low end, that's just a lot of work. So kudos to you and your team.
Brad, it's the same amount of work. It's just that for a $3 card or a $3,000 card, actually, it's more work for the $3 card, except not in those days, because there was a lot of action in $3 cards. So,
okay. But in terms of like how much you could charge for a magazine versus a data tool might be different based on the amount of money someone would put into cards.
Perhaps. When people went into the card shop in the 80s and 90s, it was, do I want to buy cards or do I want to buy a magazine? And we had, not that we were competing, but we were trying to put out a strong product that people said, I really want to have this magazine. I want to read it. I want to take it home. I want to look through it. I'm willing to show it to my friends. And so that was kind of our marketing plan. But synthesizing the data is not as hard as gathering the data. Gathering the data back in the day was what was really tough. If the first one was really tough because there wasn't a baseline. After the first month or the first year, you've got last year's prices, and has it gone up or down and generally up from the baseline. And that's so it was not impossible, or we wouldn't have done it. But I had a lot of great teammates, and it was a lot of fun for a lot of years. I think it's not as much fun now because prices are moving. Between the time we would have gone to the printer and the public printing deadlines, it would have been very difficult. It's very difficult to be timely with a print publication nowadays. It just doesn't make sense for the hottest, fastest moving cards.
I was just wondering, you think there's actual room in the market, in the hobby, for a hobby publication, even if it's not based on values, but like one really good one that's not sponsored by PSA, or it's not put out by a company, but we're going away from print anyway. But I think so many people originated from the 80s and 90s that are now returning, where we kind of like that whole let me collect my Beckett magazines, because sometimes just the cover was awesome. Sometimes it's just like, hey, if I could just have this cover, that's a pretty cool display piece. But I wonder, do you think there's room in the hobby for one go-to magazine in 2022?
Well, I mean, I think my buddies at Beckett Media still crank out some magazines, and Adam Gray, the basketball card fanatic. I mean, he basically, I think, from popular demand, went from an online digital e-zine to print on demand, and people like having the physical copy. So, but anything that's so price sensitive, that's talking about the current price of something, it's really difficult to do that in a physical product that with traditional printing methodology.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everything's gone. I mean, I love the speed of data. I love all of that right now. Dustin, what do you got?
Oh, I wanted to go back to, I know that we had talked a little bit about the Dallas show, kind of breezed over it, but what were your initial thoughts when you heard about, and again, I know this is non-sports, this is not really your thing, Dr. Beckett, but the sealed case that Logan Paul had bought for $3.5 million, just that price tag, what were your thoughts on just, initial thoughts on, I know this has been covered at length, but, just a sealed case like that, have you ever, collected sealed product? Is that part of your collection? Or are you more of just singles? What was your kind of take on that story?
I'm more of singles, but I mean, I've had some unopened product, but generally I think cards are made to be opened. So, there are probably some things I opened back in the day that I wish I'd not, but I can't undo that. I do have confidence in Steve Hart, but if you're at Baseball Card Exchange, but if you're authenticating packs and you're 99.9% correct, but that 0.1% is a $2.7, $3.5 million box, that's damaging to everybody, and especially them. So somebody somewhere along the line, they messed up, but somebody at some point also was fraudulent. There weren't accidentally G.I. Joe, cards that just mysteriously, magically appeared inside that sealed box. So somebody defrauded it, and there's going to be finger pointing as you work your way back the chain. It's even possible, I guess, that there was a switcheroo after Baseball Card Exchange, but I think that's really hard to do. At some point, there was, somebody had to know they were trying to pull a fast one, and I hope they find out who did it, and I hope they're punished, because it's reputational damage, not just to Baseball Card Exchange, but to the whole hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that same subject, part of the Dallas show controversy, or not controversy, but the intrigue of it was that someone was caught trying to sell, and I believe I'm right on this, fake cards that they knew were fake. But there was a guy on Instagram that I've met here in LA, Boosted LA, who shared a post that this guy ripped him off as well. And so we're seeing, and I think it just goes with whenever there's a lot of money in anything, money pouring in or money already there, there's insurance fraud, there's, all sorts of fraud whenever there's money. There's always sorts of scams when someone can gain something. And now we're seeing it with something at the Dallas card show, but they're getting caught. They're getting put on Instagram, and everyone can see who it is. We're seeing that with the Logan Paul Pokemon case. What's your take on whether it's a surge in the actual scams and fraud, or it's just it getting highlighted and being more obvious? What's your take there? Because with so much more money entering, there's a lot more incentive for bad apples to get in and try something shady.
I mentioned this on Hobby Hotline. It's a scary thought, but I really believe that if Fanatics has their way, the hobby industry is going to double in the next 2 or 3 years. They're going to be pouring a lot of marketing. They got the power of the players and the leagues behind them, all the sports. It's everything we should be really excited about. But if you have twice as many people in a couple of years, you're going to have twice as many scammers. It's not only going to be good guys that come in, it's going to be bad guys. And so I don't think a disproportionate amount, but out of 1,000 people come in, is there going to be one that's a bad apple? I'm sure. What we need to do as an industry, as a hobby, is self-police a little bit, and by catching somebody and kind of expose. That's not the 15 minutes of fame that I would want to be carted out in handcuffs. So I think we've got to be better at catching it, and I'm hoping that the graders, especially, any of these graders or authenticators are in a tough position, because it's not like umpires where there's instant replay. They got to get it right the first time. And I meet with my buddies, the Beckett graders and authenticators, and they mean well, but if they're not positive, I mean really positive, they need to just say, no, we cannot authenticate this. And that's been a real lesson. And that's the lesson of this. And selling, and somebody getting fooled by, was it Ryan Nolan just coming out with a book?
Yeah.
Just detecting fakes. So again, so as the hobby grows, he's able to do that. And if people get that, they're going to be forearmed and equipped. And so again, this hobby is strong enough that good. Well, that's worth.
Check this out on Amazon.com. I'm throwing this out for Ryan. Breakout cards, spotting fakes on Amazon.
Okay, so that's not spotting the fakes like the girls on Hinge that don't actually look like their pictures. That's a different book I need.
Yeah, Brad, you ordered the wrong book per usual.
Oh man. Well, so the thought I had, which is good though, is that for one, obviously there's way more cameras. Word can get out a lot quicker on anything, but also there's a good point where 3.7 million, or let's say it's 3.5 million for the Pokemon cards. Yeah, that's a big reward if you're able to scam someone. But if it's not, and you get caught, that is a big penalty. This is not just, hey, I got $50 here. I here's a couple $100 extra in my pocket. It's now you're really putting a lot on the line, because if you get caught, not only are you going to get blackballed from the hobby and everyone's going to know you because information travels so quickly, but also now there's real jail time as well. So I'm hoping, based on what we saw from
Brad, that's not necessarily true. Number one, there's a burden of proof, and it's hard to know whether they can even completely pin this on somebody, and then they could say, well, I didn't know what I was doing or something. I'm wondering what the punishment is going to be if they can even figure out who the perpetrator really is, or whether there's a conspiracy. It's a lot of money, but you've got to have evidence, and that we have evidence that something happened that shouldn't have happened. But and I'd like to see it be made an example, but you've got it. People are innocent until proven guilty. And so how far down the line was this thing done a switcheroo? I don't know, but each person is going to finger point that if this is the way I had it. That's why my fingerprints are on. If they do fingerprint analysis and they go through the fingerprint database, I would not want to have my fingerprints on some of those G.I. Joe cards or whatever they were that are in there instead of the Pokemon.
I know you have a question, Dustin. Just to add to that, maybe the emergence of NFTs and how you can put the ownership on the blockchain and things like that would be the natural evolution to protect buyers and sellers. Just so if there is something shady, it happened between this buyer and that seller, that could be years away, and maybe it'll only be the very rare high-end stuff. But it sounds like that's one way we can get closer to a solution.
That's
the problem is you can't. It's pretty hard to connect the blockchain to a physical product. It's when it's a digital product, the blockchain is the code, the unlocking of having it. But I'd love to see that. But again, the system can be beaten, but we have to have checks and balances in the system with graders that have high integrity and high skill, and hopefully this is the last we hear of it. But yeah, that's a scary thought, Brad. It could actually push people toward thinking that NFTs are the better alternative because they're more secure in that sense.
Yeah, I put a video out. Thanks for watching it, Brad, by the way. My video from 3 hours ago was all about this topic, so I'm glad that you watched it. But Kevin O'Leary, the Mr. Wonderful, the Shark Tank guy, he was talking about how 2022 was going to be the year of NFTs, but it wasn't in the sense of buying, necessarily like art NFTs projects. It was this exact sort of thing. And he was talking about watches because he buys expensive watches. And he was talking about how he's working on it with a company to where you have a digital fingerprint attached to these items so that, if they get stolen, whatever, there's a way to kind of track these on the blockchain. If someone tries to move it somewhere else or whatever, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. But I thought that was an interesting take because it seems like sports card people are not necessarily NFT fans, and NFT fans don't necessarily get sports cards. And realistically, they might be working together for authentication purposes down the road. Dr. Beckett, I had a question for you, and I think I have this right. I saw this on one of your podcasts, I believe, but it was a good debate you were talking about investment grade cards, because when I've heard of like collectibles guru people, they will talk about, I've heard this thrown around where it's the top 15% of a particular card, or maybe someone has it as top 5% or whatever, as far as quality, grade, condition, etc. But I've heard you kind of, if I have this right, push back kind of on that moniker of, it's 15% or better, or it's just not even worth your time. And I agree with you if that's what it is. I don't think you necessarily have to have the top 15% for it to be declared, that's that type of card. But what are your thoughts on that? And maybe I have that completely wrong, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, there's two houses on a block that are for sale. One of them's $500,000 and one of them's $1 million. Which one's the better deal? You need more information.
Right.
You need more information. But most people say buy the cheaper house. If it's on the same block with an expensive house, it's got room to go up. Okay. Nobody applies that logic to sports cards. They all go for the bigger card as if that's the better investment. It could be the same card in a better condition. And to me, it just, you don't know what the future holds. These condition premiums, will they hold up? A 9 is still a mint card. So to pay 10 times as much for a 10, or some, outrageous multiple is, so you just have to not be completely emotional about it. And you got to figure out what are my goals here? What do I really want to do? And like just with a house, how much house do I need? Or a car, you could get, but nobody thinks of a car as an investment usually, but a house can be an investment, but you want to buy it right.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
Absolutely. I was wondering, based on how crazy it's been the last couple of years, what is something that has changed in terms of your belief around the hobby? Something that maybe, you stuck with that belief the last 20, 30 years, but the last year, maybe it was just last year, 2021, you said, I don't believe in this anymore. I think this is different, or I don't think things will ever be the same because of this, in spite of the last 30 or 40 years.
Well, no one could think. I mean, the most exceptional thing is that, the world stood still. There were no sports of any kind, and cards took off. That's unprecedented. There were no sports, no dynamic activity on the field. Now, probably that's confounded with the fact that there wasn't any betting on sports. So people wanted to express themselves, and so it's never happened in my lifetime, Brad. So and I don't like it. I want to have sports on a regular basis, not short seasons and quirky playoff formats and things like that. I want to see seasons played out and reasonable statistics and all that. So there were no minor league games. So how are you going to prospect for baseball, a year ago? So these are unprecedented times. I think 2022 hopefully gets back to normal, but 2023 could be hyperdrive with with Fanatics in full form.
Just talk about Fanatics real quick. I know that's been very controversial because some people see it as an even bigger company stepping in, and they're going to change things and only look for the most amount of profit. And because of that, they'll ruin the hobby, or they'll make it really tough for the average collector. And obviously, any business wants to maximize profit. But if you have a long-term vision, it's because you're doing something that's sustainable and you're actually serving people in a way that you can make profit for 20 years, 30 years, versus trying to make all the money right away and then you scare people out of the industry. So what's your take on the Fanatics takeover, knowing their vision, knowing their power as well? Do you see it as a healthy thing? And like, where would you differ on your opinion versus a lot of the collectors that have been in for a long time and are familiar with Panini and Topps and Upper Deck and brands like that?
Well, just from what you said, Brad, I would say that Michael Rubin, the principal owner of Fanatics and the trading thing for sure, is been making lots of money on volume, not on gouging and goosing people with very high margin, but he's selling other people's stuff, and he's a master marketer. And so he's made it on volume, not on trying to gouge or anything like that. So he's going to have more customers. And is he going to make the price points go up a little bit? Yeah, if he makes them go up too much, he's too smart. He's too smart. You can't like double prices overnight and expect twice as many people to show up. I think he wants to build a sustainable business, and it's based on volume and making cards and collecting and memorabilia and all the other things he wants to do more mainstream. And if that happens, that's good. That's good. So, what people were turned off by in our industry is some of the wild fluctuations of new unopened product. And I think they're going to get a handle on that because they're direct to consumer. I'm sure they're going to give some to card shops, but they're going to. I just think they want to build confidence in the category, and that means producing it, making it available, but not overproducing it. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They didn't double the price of caps and jerseys and all that stuff. They just made it omnipresent and available, and provided good customer service, delivery, and distribution. And if they do the same thing with cards, I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, getting players involved and having them have equity, I think would make it so much more fun, because I also think, man, I want players to be involved with these cards, because then you're even more connected to the player that you're collecting versus them not even being associated with it or knowing that card exists. Like, I don't want a player to be like, oh man, I didn't even know this existed of me. I think it'd be way cooler to see them hold it up on an Instagram post and know that you have that same card, and now you have an extra level of connection with that player.
Well, and you think too about Ruben and some of these guys, they're friends with these players, with a lot of these players, a lot of these athletes. They're part of the culture. They're part of that group, to where it's not as if you have kind of a CEO that's Wizard of Oz behind the curtain and you don't know who they are. These guys are out front and, very open and engaging, and they do interviews, and I'm with you.
Real quick, want to shout out Troy's Collectibles. Thank you so much for the super chats. And yeah, we got to get that Fanatics sponsorship. And then last time I was wearing this jacket that reminded him of the Starsky and Hutch look. I guess I'm the Ben Stiller character, and Dustin is Owen Wilson. I forgot which one's Starsky, which one's Hutch.
Okay, yeah. Is that a Thundercats t-shirt, or is that another Bucks shirt? Do you wear it?
Do you wear that on Bucko Brady?
Oh, it's got Brady on it. Do you wear that on your dates? You wear that shirt on all your dates too?
If I don't want another date, if I want to just like make sure that I don't have to let her down, she could break it off with me, then I wear this and I bring some of my base cards.
Yeah.
So look, let's shift into something a bit lighter, a bit, we've talked about some of the serious aspects of the hobby, and we need to touch on that. But this is a great question by Patrick. I'm sure you've seen a lot over the decades. What are some of your favorite stories in the hobby, whether it's in person or something you encountered online, something someone said about you, or what pops up in your mind?
Gosh, that's embarrassing. I think some of my favorite hobby moments are some of the firsts. The first card show I went to that I actually organized with my close friend. We started the first magazine, the first book, those were I had a sense of accomplishment. And then what Dustin was showing, like the basketball magazine. By the time there, I had a really outstanding team by that time. And then some of my favorite hobby moments after my, doing it by myself for a few years, once I brought in some of these strong teammates, that was a more of a group celebration, and just had a lot of highs with our company. I don't think one of my favorite hobby moments was selling my company, which has been almost 17 years ago now. So I've been not gone, but I've been taking a step backwards for all those years. So that wasn't a high for me in one sense, but it actually allowed me to come back to enjoy some more true hobby moments. I'd become an industry guy instead of a hobby guy at the point of time I sold. So, and I really regard hobby and industry as two different mindsets, just like collector and investor. I've never really been an investor, but I certainly have had cards that have gone way up in value. Of course, anything I bought in the 50s and 60s is, it's just ludicrous. It's thousands of percent or whatever it is. It's you buy something for a penny. I still have cards I bought for a penny. So,
wow.
Some of those are the best ones because the emotional attachment to the memory of a penny card could be the exact same as a $100,000 card. Some of my favorite cards are literally those same ones I bought when I was a 12-year-old kid, and they were $1. It was like 91 Skybox Michael Jordan, and it's like a $2 card, but it doesn't matter. That was the same card I had when I was 12 years old. So, I mean, I think a lot of people get caught up in the more expensive the card, the better or the more emotional attachment you should have to it, but that's not necessarily the case. I think that's the beauty of the hobby, is that you can just collect dollar cards or 50-cent cards, or some of the artists we had on. We had Donnie B Collectibles, who cuts up some of the lower end cards and turns it into a unique piece of artwork, which I know some collectors don't like, but when you see some of the artwork that is created, it's phenomenal. It's beautiful. It's three-dimensional. And you're like, wow, this is something unique. And it could be made out of junk wax cards.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And they're cutting them all up. We had a guy that did that back in the day. That was a real work of art. You have to have this perspective. You get too close to it, you back off, and just amazing how people can do that.
When you were talking, Dr. Beckett, about selling off your company, I kept thinking to myself, what if Fanatics reached out to you and said, we would love for you to be on our board of advisors or something like that? Would you entertain any position like that for Fanatics, or or eBay, or a company where they really want your perspective and your understanding of the hobby in order to help them? And like, especially Fanatics, though, who's taking over such a big portion of the cards that we buy. Would that be something that would interest you, just to get involved?
Yes and no. Yes, I like to help. I mean, basically what I do now, guys, I'm a pro bono consultant. So I help my friends and friends of my friends, individuals, organizations, influencers, profit, nonprofit, whatever, and just help them in any way I can on a limited basis. I'm not looking to get a job. So I wouldn't be interested in a job. I wouldn't even really interested in being any kind of a permanent consultant, but I'm a troubleshooter, and I'm a problem solver. And, I go over and meet with the Beckett media guys. And if they've got a problem or something, I mean, I'm off the clock, but I'm friends. I want the brand to do well. I want Fanatics to do well. My friends at Panini, I meet with them sometimes. And, so I'm kind of a free agent, but I'm free, emphasis on free. So, so I would, if people call me, I generally talk to them. I'm not. I was so busy, Brad and Dustin, back in the day. I really had a tiger by the tail with the industry, and the company was just thriving. But now that I do have some time, and if they said, "Hey, come up and spend a week with us," I'd say no. But I'll spend an hour or two discussing whatever the issue is that's keeping them up at night. And I do that several times a week. I've done thousands of meetings like that over the last 20 years. So that's fun, but I'm not going to put the monkey on my back. I'm neither going to be an employee or an employer. I'm retired.
Real quick before Justin, I know you have a question, but if they do ask and you say no, just know that my number's right there, and I'm glad to charge a very handsome amount of money for a couple hours of my time. So,
I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say no. I won't do that. But here's what I would do, and what I would do is I'd be happy to spend a little bit of time with them. And if I don't get it solved, I'll say call Brad and Dustin. Okay.
All right.
If you want some like non-insightful advice that's probably really wrong, I got two guys in my phone right here I can refer you to. I was just wondering, I know you have a question, Dustin, based on the consultant.
Not that you care, though. Not that you care, but go ahead.
I acknowledge you have a question. I don't care. No, I'm just kidding. But in terms of the consultant, I'm just wondering, the question that pops in my mind, is there a common question? Is there a common challenge? Is there something where it's like these companies are trying to solve this issue and they're coming to you, and something where you could say, well, this is a pain point in the hobby, or this is something that I see these companies are trying to do. And, because I don't know if there's a theme to the consulting or if it's just random things.
It's not, Brad. I mean, but you can't, I can't knock on their door and say, hey, I'm a consultant. Tell me all your problems. That's no fun. But if they've got a problem and they want to, in fact, what might happen is if I perceive a problem, that's why I have a podcast. Then I can address it. And again, I'm a quick study or quick talker or something. It's going to be 15 minutes or less that I'm just going to look at that from my perspective, which, as you pointed out, is a little bit unique because I've been around a lot longer than most people. So yeah, I'm happy to help, and I'll give my perspective, and they can say, hey, yeah, that's interesting. But it's just like if you're helping, and if you were a counselor, you can tell people what to do, or a trainer, go to a seminar, and it's this great technique for doubling your sales. Still, a small percentage of the people follow up. And so, and it's regardless of whether they paid or not. And so I'm happy to help. I want my old company to thrive. I want the industry to thrive, and I want to enjoy what I'm doing. And so so I make myself available, but it's on my own terms. That's what I would say.
Gotcha. Okay. I was just trying to see if there's like every company's trying to go in this one direction and you're noticing something there in all the consulting. But Dustin, what question you got? I know you've been waiting for.
It was kind of along those same lines of like, what would, is there something that you would like to see? Maybe not even necessarily Beckett grading, but just something you'd like to see in grading in particular that maybe, a change of process or something that's different or some innovation. Is there anything in particular with card grading that you'd like to see happen, moving forward?
Yes. And I talked to Jeremy about it, and I'm not going to tell you what it is because
I was trying to get a nugget out of it.
I have a proprietary idea that I pitched to Jeremy Murray at BGS. And I said, I think this is an idea that'll really work, and you guys ought to consider it. And they're considering it. But it's proprietary, and it would give BGS a competitive advantage. And so I hope they do it, but I can't twist their arm. I'm not the boss anymore. If I were still the boss, I would have already done it. So, but that's okay. So I'm not, I'm not going to get emotionally involved. I'm just going to say, here's an idea, and it's for your consideration.
Yeah, you're like, Jeremy, you don't have to do it, but my name is on the damn thing. So,
so is this called Murray grading? I think not.
Well, he's got his hands. I'm not going to be bugging him. He it's like there's a lot of dreamers out there, and there's doers, and the doers, already have a lot on their plate, and this would be one more thing on his plate. And so, it's when the industry's thriving, it's hard to keep up, guys. I mean, it's exciting, but it's exhausting too.
Yeah, and I think we're talking about the graders, and we're talking about it's a lot of pressure on the graders, but it's also a lot of pressure on the grading companies who've had to expand much quicker than they would have liked to in order to somewhat keep up with demand. So it really is like, hey, you're overwhelming me. We can't vet the graders and train them as extensively as maybe we'd want to or like to, or even if we could, the things we're seeing are changing so rapidly that we can't even keep up. So it's very tough. I thought 2021 was a big catch-up year, like an exhale, where it's not caught up, but it's a catch-up year. And hopefully by the end of this year, it'll be very sustainable and not so volatile.
Yeah, just not to get snarky or anything, but I mean, basically, I had an idea for that, but I'm not going to throw it out into the pod sphere, for PSA and SGC and any other grading company to consider it. But I had a thought about that I shared with Jeremy, because I happen to have the same name as the grading company, it was addressing that pain point. So yeah, you're right, Brad. But like I said, if it's a general thing for the industry, then I'm just going to throw it out there in my podcast and let people, somebody will take it and run with it. But if it looks like it could be something that the Beckett Media could tackle, then I'm gonna give them first shot.
Let's switch over to Sports Card Insights, the podcast. We haven't talked about that yet. So, and I love how we were actually talking about this before the show. You batch them and send them out. I catch them. There's 4 or 5 episodes sometimes that come out in the morning, and I like to watch them back to back. But what's been your experience? I know you started this a while ago, but how has your experience been, and how much do you have a set? I think that you said you have a set amount of episodes that you wanted to get to.
Well, my wife is saying don't say that anymore. But when I started, I said I think I'll just do 1,000 episodes.
Okay.
And they were daily episodes, and they were but for the podcast they come out every morning. So but then I manually post some of them to YouTube. And I'll batch them up, and at the end of the week, I'll put some out there. So, yeah,
it's really good stuff.
It's every day except Sunday, and they're never more than 15 minutes. And they're, just some interviews, some stuff with me and Rich Klein, and some dueling questions, some looking at sets and players, and tributes to people that have passed away that were iconic in the industry and worth remembering. I got tired of reading obits written by people that never met the person. And I thought, I knew the guy, and in many cases, and I can tell some stories. So I've been surprised. But you're a YouTuber, and I've realized now that I'm much more comfortable. I just put it on YouTube as an afterthought. Just because there are a few people that do that, but the vast majority of my listeners are podcast subscribers that just get it through the podcast apps of Apple Podcasts and Spotify, Stitcher, and Downcast, Overcast, everything cast. And so there's certain people that just get it in their whatever podcast mailbox or whatever it is. They get it delivered to their device, their phone. Every morning.
Yeah, there's a lot of range. That's what I like about it, because you have many.
I'm all over the place, which is not the recipe for building, but I'm trying to create a little bit of oral history for the category, and so that includes vintage, which is my love, I think, more so, but also brand new stuff. And I'm now realizing that I could claim the identity of the oldest reviewer in the hobby of current boxes.
There you go.
So I get a box from Topps or Panini or Upper Deck, I'll go through it, and I'm thinking, I am not their typical customer. But I'm going to comment on what I see and have some fun with it. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Are
And
you
it's
going
fun.
to the National this year?
I've never missed, Dustin.
So you're going to Atlantic City.
If I'm not there, there's something that
Okay. Any other shows? Are you drawn to any of these? I'm going to the
I'm in business now. The Dallas show is
Yeah.
as good a show as I can go to. There's six. It's like every other month, and then Kyle has more unadvertised 150 table shows in the off months, and so I can go in there, and I'm always coming back with a few boxes of cards. It's my I have an awesome wife, but she said, "Wait a minute, what's this 1% a month you're selling? Looks like you're buying 1% a month."
That's nice. You've got a big show that's 30 minutes away. That's convenient.
It's less than 30 minutes, and then I can buy a box of cards. You know, some people, if you had $1,000 budget, you go to a show, you got $1,000 budget, they want to come back with $1,000 card. And then some people want to come back with 10 $100 cards. And some people want to come back with 100 $10 cards. I want to come back with 1,000 $1 cards. Now they're
And
not
your wife is thrilled.
Yeah. Not thrilled.
Yeah.
Space in the shoe closet.
I could hide the one card. I could hide the 10 cards. The 100.
You have four pairs of black shoes. You only need one pair. Let me throw these out. I'll give them to the Goodwill. I need more cards here.
Well, I mean, it's just if you go through the dollar boxes, I'm sure I can. So I could always find 1,000 cards out of a dollar box in there, just because it's like there's guide price, there's value price, but there's the cost of the card. If they're offering, it could be a 10-cent card or a $10 card in a dollar box. You just don't know. But if it's a $10 card, I think I'll just take that. I mean, I'm going to pay for it, but
I'm not taking. We saw.
Otherwise, I'll be like what happened at the show. There'll be a takedown.
Man, that would be some serious content. That would be some unbelievable content.
If you want to go viral,
Dr. Beckett wrestled to the ground.
Apparently, they wrestled that guy to the ground with vehemence to break his shoulder or whatever they did. It was. I will not put myself in that position. I'm.
Absolutely. We definitely want to respect your time, and it's almost top of the hour. I just have a couple rapid fire questions I'd love to ask. The first one is, if we were to have you on a year from today, what would you say you would like to see in the hobby that is different than today from 1 year? What would you like? What's your wish?
Well, I'd like to see that there's, what was cool that I've always hoped for is that the hobby would grow 10% a year. Not double 1 year and then stay the same for the next 3 years. So I think we had a doubling over the last couple of years, and I'd like to get back to 5 or 10% growth, and I'd like that not to be in price points growth, but numbers of people in terms of fans, collectors, investors. That there's more than 10% more energy, and some things could go up, some things could go down, but more things would be going up. And so as long as it's mixed like that, it'll be fun. If it's too much of a sure thing, the wrong people are going to get in. If it's a bad deal, people are going to leave. It needs to be a good deal, and a good deal that's sustainable. And it's like in the investment world, things don't go up forever. They're going to find a level, and then they'll stay there for a while and then go up. And so that's my hope, that 2022 was a really good year.
Absolutely.
More winners than losers, and everybody had a good time, and the hobby is broadened, deepened, and expanded.
Awesome.
And for Brad's sake, Kyler Murray has a better season next year.
Oh, better finish anyway. Wow.
Finish, yeah.
That's his worst game ever. I mean, he almost was undefeated, until he got to the pros.
Yeah, that's a good point. He actually had a good season outside of being hurt, and then just flopped in the playoffs. He'll be back though, Brad. He'll be back. I'm joking with Brad because he's holding Prism rookie cards,
and they're the base Prism, so it's not even like the good ones. So, last question I got to ask: anything on the card side you would like to see? Maybe an old set you'd love to see remade, or a genre of cards you think. Maybe it's not a sport, maybe it is a sport, something that you'd love to see get a bit more traction or attention, something that you're like, I would love for this sport to just be more popular, or this, whether it's Marvel or something like that.
Let me answer it in the way I thought you were going, and that is that one of the exciting things about Fanatics' purchase of Topps is that there's so much great design and imagery if you go back through 70 years of Topps. And so Fanatics, to take their marketing muscle and use some of those classic designs, I'm really looking forward to that. I think they're going to bring some additional creativity to it. They're going to, like I said, we're going to have the players involved. So I like that. But some of the most famous designs are probably owned by Upper Deck now, the old Fleer and Skybox kind of stuff. I think Upper Deck owns the kind of rights to that stuff. So I hope they use that stuff. So there's a lot of great designs historically that they can go to the well with. And then we've seen from some of these downtowns and kabooms and things like that, there's also new things that are very artistic, attention grabbing. And so I'm bullish. I'm bullish. So, but I'm not a designer. I did some of the early design of the magazine before it looked nice. But no, I think it's a very visual hobby, and I do think that Fanatics is going to bring some more visual punch to some of the Topps current designs, the Topps heritage and archives, the classic designs. I have a better feeling for the brand. The flagships they've had over the last few years are kind of seemingly pretty similar to me. So, I'd like to get some fresh eyes on that.
Awesome. Well, we'll get you out on that. We appreciate you joining us so much. We love your wisdom and your sense of humor. And the hobby's only going to grow. I'm just so glad you're optimistic about that. It will for sure. And I see a lot of big things coming this year. And I'm sure you know about a lot of projects that will only make the hobby available to more and more people. So if you're out there, definitely check out Dr. Beckett's podcast. I guess iTunes and anywhere you would get your podcast. Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights, for daily, or it looks like almost daily content.
Yeah, no Sundays, but Monday through Saturday, every morning on podcast. And as Dustin pointed out, I'm lazy. It's once a week. I'll post a few to YouTube. But it's been fun. I've got great interaction with listeners and viewers, and it's been fun. Been a different way to engage. So
awesome.
Absolutely. And thank you to MySlabs too. Don't forget that, Brad.
Yeah. Thank you to MySlabs, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Dr. Beckett, once again. And we will see you guys next week.
See you guys.
Tired of paying 10%, 15%, or more to sell your cards, comics, and digital collectibles? How does 1% sound? Too good to be true? Well, not anymore. MySlabs.com is the web's premier user-driven marketplace for buying and selling slabbed cards, sealed wax, and now slabbed comics and digital collectibles. So the next time you're forced to pay 10% or more to sell something from your collection, head over to MySlabs.com and join the 1% revolution.